Hello again everyone from Tokyo, Japan, and welcome back to Japan Vintage Camera. As you can tell, I'm not going to be doing a camera review video today. I have a camera review video in the works, one I think which is a pretty good one. I should have that out on the weekend. In the meantime, this video is more for the people who are interested in the Japan part of Japan Vintage Camera. I sometimes receive comments asking if I could make more videos about life in Japan and things like that. So today's video is more for this group of people. The title of this video is what is it like to live in Japan? And I'm going to try to describe that from my perspective, having lived in Japan for close to 20 years now. And I'm making this video from my bike because I'm trying to get back into shape after not doing much riding during the summer. The summer's been especially busy. First, my daughter was out of school for the summer, and normally she goes to summer school and programs like that, but this year she stayed home. So besides working at home, I have to keep an eye on her, and she's not quite big enough to go cycling with me yet, though she's a pretty good cyclist. And next, this year there were a couple of deaths in my wife's family, and so these things complicated, and a lot of arrangements have to be made, and we have to there are services and funerals and things like that that we've had to arrange and be present for. And then most recently we had the Obon holiday, which is kind of a festival for the spirits and ancestors, or kami as they are called in Japan. And it's the time of year when people go to visit the cemeteries and the graves of their families and ancestors. And if you've had someone pass away in your family during the year, it's kind of a requirement to take part in these ceremonies. And then on top of that, we've had travel and other things, so it's been a much busier summer season than usual. But life in Japan, like in other places, is busy, and especially here in Tokyo. So what is it like to live in Japan? In my case, I have no complaints. I really enjoy living here. There are a lot of things which Japan has going for it, and it's a place which I would recommend to people who are looking for a new place or a new start on life. And also, I think it's a good place for retirement, and increasingly I think it's a good place to run a business for people who can work online or such. It's a great place. The first thing which Japan has going for it, and which you can probably see during the process of this video, is that it's clean. Tokyo is, as everyone knows, quite a large and densely populated city, which is very busy, but it's a remarkably clean city. And the interesting thing is that most of the cleaning is just done by ordinary people. There aren't any sanitation crews which wander around the city to try to keep it clean like this. Pretty much you are responsible for keeping the area in front of your residence or building or whatever clean. And early in the morning, you'll see people out and about picking up trash or cigarette butts or sweeping up leaves or whatever. And there's no rule that anyone does this. There's no requirement, but it's part of the culture, so people do it. And it's kind of one of the advantages of living in a place where everyone adheres to a common culture, is that people have common expectations, and in my experience, especially in Japan, that helps. And of course, myself, I'm not Japanese, but since I live in Japan, I do my best to be part of Japan and take part in the culture. So once a month, I go with my wife and daughter to volunteer for trash pickup out in Harajuku, and the area we do is on Cat Street between Omotesando Road and Miyashita in Shibuya. And we meet early on a Sunday morning in front of the Patagonia store, and there's usually about 30 or 40 people who show up for this, and everyone is given bags and gloves and tongs and we go over the entire area to pick up the trash. But usually, out of all the people who are there, we're lucky if we find enough trash to fill one bag, and usually that bag is less than halfway full. Because as I said, in Japan, most people take it upon themselves to clean up around their homes and in their neighborhoods. This is the car capital of Tokyo right here, this particular street running up to the National Picture Gallery ahead. Not so many today, but if you come here on Saturday or Sunday, or even a few hours later today, this place will be lined up with exotic cars. I was looking the other day at a Porsche 918, which was here. There are two of these cars in my neighborhood, and there aren't many of them in the world, and to have two of them in one neighborhood is quite a feat. Another thing about Tokyo, which I like, is, and Japan in general, of course, is that it's quiet. Japan and Japanese, there's a word called wa, or which means harmony, and people here like to live in, I guess, natural and social harmony. They don't like loud noises or loud voices. And when I'm going around Tokyo, I don't often hear the sound of a car horn. I've lived in and worked in New York City, where it seems like a rule where you have to use your car horn like once every 30 seconds or so, or you're not driving properly. Here, that's definitely not the case. It's very quiet. People don't talk on their phones on trains or buses or indoors, in shops or things like that. If someone gets a phone call, usually they quickly get up and go somewhere out of the way where they can speak quietly without everyone else being, entertained by their conversations. You can always spot people who are not Japanese by how they use their phones in public. Most of the non-Japanese in Japan are Asians, and it's not always easy to spot who is Japanese and who isn't, unless you're Japanese. But that's usually a dead giveaway. And also, Japanese people don't hold their phone in front of them on speaker mode and talk into it. They keep it close to their ear and speak quietly and kind of hold in the way as though they don't want anyone else to hear what the other person on the phone is saying, as if anyone could. There's one thing I like here. Now, some noise is unavoidable, like in this neighborhood, the sound of exotic cars and motorcycles and the occasional train. But other than that, it's very quiet. Another good thing about living here is safety. Japan is a remarkably safe country. I could leave my bike out here in front of one of the convenience stores pretty much anywhere in the city for an hour or two unlocked and not have to worry about it being stolen. Now, I probably wouldn't leave it parked out overnight unlocked, though I have done that on occasion accidentally, and luckily my bike is still there in the morning. But it's a place where you don't have to worry about crime. You don't have to worry about your pocket being picked. You don't have to worry about being carjacked or mugged or the victim of a random assault. You don't have to worry about your home being burglarized. And if you're a business person, you don't have to worry about retail theft. And it's nice to live in a place where these worries aren't on the top of your mind, which they are in other places. It's like when I was living and working in New York City, and it was a much safer place back then than it is today. I was always careful to pay attention to people around me and keep an eye out for crazies and such, and that's something I don't have to worry about here. And I really like that. So why is Japan safe? The culture is part of it, because Japanese people are brought up to be honest and law-abiding, and as they've grown up in a, high-trust society, they're used to it and they maintain it. Another part is Japan's criminal justice system, which is remarkably severe. Now, the laws here are nothing to mess with, and they take law and order very seriously here. If you get caught stealing a bottle of water from a convenience store and the convenience store presses charges, you're going to go to jail. It's not like in America where the police won't even respond for a retail theft. Here the police will respond and you will be arrested and you will go to jail. And while stealing a bottle of water isn't going to result in any kind of serious prison time, it does take time for these cases to be processed, and they hold you during that processing time, which would be usually 3 to 5 weeks. So here people kind of see the consequences of breaking the law as too severe to risk. And so people don't break the law. Another interesting thing about Japan, and one thing which is responsible for why it's such a safe country, is the lack of drugs and drug addiction. As I've mentioned, Japan's laws and criminal justice system are very severe, but in regards to drugs, they are insanely severe. And for even a tiny amount of drugs, of any kind of drug, Japan doesn't make any distinction between cannabis or cocaine or fentanyl or anything else. All of them are considered illicit substances, and the minimum sentence for possession of any amount is usually between 2 and 3 years. So that's another, and it's enforced. It's not like America where if you get arrested you can be bailed out, or on lesser charges you are released to await your day in court. Here they hold you in custody until your case is decided. And everyone knows the conviction rate in Japan is very high. It's reputed to be 99%. It's not quite that high, but it's close to it. And in most cases, for minor stuff, you'll just get time served because it took a long time for the offense to be processed. So you don't want to be caught with drugs in Japan. They have absolutely zero tolerance for drugs and drug possession here, but the side effects of their drug policies are not bad. In America and other places I've been, most crime is drug related. Most retail theft, most car, pretty much everything in some way is related to drugs when it comes to crime in America. Since Japan doesn't have a drug culture or an addiction problem, there are no, I guess, comorbidities, as was a popular expression a few years ago. Another result of this lack of drugs in society is many fewer people suffering from mental illness and far fewer homeless. If you take a city like Seattle, which I love, and you think that how high the homeless population is there, between 5,000 and 8,000, depending on what stats you read. And then you compare it to Japan, which has nearly 130 million people, but has homeless population, an official population of about 2,000. Even if you triple the official figures, you still end up with an extremely low level of homelessness, and much lower than in many American cities. Yeah, I'm definitely out of shape. I'm breathing hard here. Biggest hill is yet to come when I go up into the park. I'm kind of following the Chuo Expressway on my left, and I'll be passing under it soon. To my right would be Shinjuku. Ahead in the distance would be Shibuya. And to my left on the other side of the park would be Harajuku. So thankfully, homelessness is not a big issue in Japan, and what homeless we have here are mainly alcoholics and people who are simply antisocial. And Japan has very good programs for dealing with homelessness. They have services for getting people off the streets and dealing with alcohol addiction, and teaching people to manage money, finding them jobs, because there's no lack of work in Japan. Plenty of jobs to be found here. And indeed, many places are screaming for help. The people who are unemployed or homeless, they're not homeless due to lack of financial opportunity or for high housing costs. And that's another thing which I should mention. The cost of living in Japan is remarkably low. Now, many Japanese would cringe to hear me say that, but then they haven't been outside of Japan and seen how bad inflation is in places like Europe or America, which have had 2 to 3 times as much inflation as we've had here in Japan. Recent people who've come to Japan have said that there's been a lot of inflation here, but if you go back further in time, like to when I first came to Japan, price of goods and stuff on shelves here is about the same as it was 20 years ago. Because for a long time, Japan was deflationary and prices were going down on everything. And it wasn't until after the pandemic that prices started going up. So I travel to America a lot. I go to New York City 2 or 3 times per year. I visit my family in the Southwest at least once a year. And every time I go there, I have to cringe at the cost of things like food and clothing and fuel and everything else, things which were much more reasonable not so long ago and are more reasonable in Japan. A meal at a Tokyo McDonald's, double cheeseburger value meal, costs about half as much here as it does in America for the same meal with the same size portion. Oh, that crow is getting bold. This is Yoyogi Park, and this is like the crow capital of Tokyo. It's where all the crows come to mate in the crow mating season, which was back in May or so. It's very noisy here in May. It's nice and quiet now. So, yeah, it's much cheaper. Soft drinks from the vending machines here cost half as much as they cost at a store in America. And it's nice to be able to afford things more easily here. Another thing which is different in Japan is the cost of housing, which is also very reasonable. Now, in much of Japan, that makes sense because the population has been decreasing in most of the country, but not here in Tokyo, where the population is still growing. But even in Tokyo, housing remains affordable. Now, there are some places which are ungodly expensive, and like in any place. But if you're earning a middle-class income here in Japan as a single income household, as most Japanese households still are, housing is reasonable. It's not big, but it is very modern and very convenient. So here in Tokyo, I live in Roppongi, which is kind of the Beverly Hills of Japan. It's where all the celebrities and political class and big business people live, and there are homes there which go for more than $50 million. But even in these expensive neighborhoods with a $20 to a $50 million home, you can find a small apartment for under $1,000 a month. It's quite interesting the way that works. And the reason housing is affordable in Japan isn't because there's any official policy or programs to make housing cheaper. The reality is there are less programs for this kind of thing in Japan than anywhere else. If you've been to Japan or Tokyo and you walk around and you look at the buildings, you'll notice that often no two buildings look alike. They're completely different in style, size, color, construction. There's no general theme that they follow. In Japan, you can build anything you like. And the reason that is because there's virtually no zoning in Japan, not even here in Tokyo. Now, there are a few historical areas in Japan where any new home has to fit in with the style of the existing homes, but in the other 99% of Japan, this doesn't apply. The reason for this is prior to the war, most of the land in Japan, something like 90% of the land, was owned by less than 10% of the people. And the American occupation broke this system and enacted serious land reform, gave the farms to the farmers, gave homes in the suburbs to the people who live there, and really liberalized the land and property in Japan. And in order to prevent a small amount of people from accumulating the majority of the land, very powerful property rights were given to the people. And these rights make it very difficult for the government to regulate construction and housing. Now, my my father-in-law built a beautiful new home on the beach in Kamakura. Kamakura is one of the most ancient cities in Japan with a beautiful coastline. And my father-in-law has done really well for himself after a lifetime of hard work. So he found a home for sale on the beach, and he tore it down, cleared out the land, and had a new home designed and built. And the entire process from finding the land to opening the door and walking in was less than 2 years. And when you consider the time it takes to tear down an existing dwelling, to hire someone to design a new one, to find a contractor to build it, to actually build it and furnish it and have it ready to move in within less than 2 years, that's pretty darn fast. If this wouldn't be possible in most states in America, especially if you're trying to build on the coast. In California, there is no way you would even get permits within 2 years, or even a hearing to look at your permits or to apply for permits. Here it's fast because the government simply has no say on what you do with your own property. Now, an interesting thing about Japan is people here have pretty good, strong rights, but your rights end outside yourself or outside your property line. So if I were in my neighborhood to design a house which looked like a giant penis, I could build it, even if it outraged my neighbors and had a serious effect on their property values. There's nothing they can do about it. And while this may not seem fair to my neighbors, the effect is that newer housing in Japan tends to drive down the price of older housing, which keeps the overall cost of housing much lower than it would otherwise be. So for people in California, or New York, or places where there's a housing shortage, instead of enacting more rules, you should consider getting rid of all the rules you already have. You'll notice much better results. So in the past, renting a home in Japan used to be difficult. It was a long and formal process which required a lot of documentation and a large number of deposits. We figure you would have to pay the first month's rent, the last month's rent, 1 or 2 months of deposit, and anywhere from 1 to 3 months of reikin, or gift money, which goes to the landlord. And this was from back in the days when there was less housing, when the population here was growing strongly. But now it's a renter's or a buyer's market. And the last time I had to rent a property here, I rented an office in Tokyo on Yaisu Street, which is the main street which comes out of Tokyo Station and goes out through Ginza into Tsukuda. And it was a small office. The rent at the time, they were asking 120,000 yen per month, about the equivalent of $1,000 per month at the time, and roughly 3 months worth of deposits. And my wife, who is a good negotiator, as Japanese women often are, talked to them, and she got them to waive all of the deposits, and all I had to do was pay for the remainder of the month's rent and just move right in. And she also negotiated the rent down to $800 per month, and they were willing to take it. And I kept that office for almost 3 years. I was quite happy with the location and a nice quiet place to work. Now I work from home, which is very convenient, but I do kind of miss commuting to my office each day. So yeah, the cost of living and cost of housing is very low here. Next thing to consider is healthcare. So one good thing about Japan is it has a very modern but very inexpensive healthcare system. So a lot of people believe that Japan has a single payer, I don't know why I'm thinking of video games, but single payer system, but that's not really the case. Japan does have a national healthcare plan, but you can also buy private insurance or you can pay out of pocket. So long as you can pay for your healthcare, it doesn't matter how you do it, so long as you pay, you can get it. The opposite side of that coin, if you don't pay, you aren't entitled to receive healthcare in Japan. So we don't have any migrants or such here in Japan like other countries have, and such migrants are, if they don't have money to pay for healthcare, they simply can't get it unless they go to a hospital for indigent people, and that applies for Japanese too. There are stories in Japan of people who have been turned away from hospitals and such and have died due to the delay in getting treatment, but these cases are extremely rare because even if you don't have healthcare, most treatment in Japan is very affordable. And though there is some wait for certain procedures, it's not very long like it is in other countries with national plans. If you need surgery for cancer or other issues like that, that can be quickly arranged. There's one benefit which America has is the speediness of treatment. If you're diagnosed with cancer there, they'll often get you into surgery the same day. Here in Japan, it won't be the same day unless it's absolutely necessary, but you will get timely treatment. And people I know who've been treated for cancer or things like that here in Japan have gotten good and timely treatment. And so far, I don't know anyone who's actually died of the disease. Knock on carbon fiber there. So the healthcare system is good, and there's a lot of it. During the pandemic, it was found that Japan has about 8 times as many hospital beds per capita as America, which I'm sure is astonishing to a lot of people. But yeah, it's the way the system works. It's very inexpensive here and easy to access. And as I said, very reasonable. So if you're thinking of coming to Japan to work, there are a lot of things you can do here. Won't talk too loudly as I'm passing by people. As I mentioned earlier, that talking loudly is not considered polite here in Japan, so I won't do it when I'm close to other people. But for younger people, there are lots of options for coming to Japan to work. There are schools and such who are always looking for assistant language teachers or English teachers or French or Spanish teachers. And it's not necessarily only younger people who need to apply. Older people can do it too. If you're in your 50s, you can still get a job doing this work. The tourist industry is booming here in Japan, and resorts are always looking for foreigners who look very foreign and who can speak English or French or sometimes Spanish. English and French are the 2 languages which are most in demand here. And resorts are kind of interesting because you get to live in a very beautiful part of the country and helping people to have fun. It's hard to imagine a better job than that, to live near the ski slopes up in Hokkaido or Hakuba, or down near the beaches in Okinawa or whatever. On the surface of it, when you look at the pay and such, it may not seem very high, but when you consider that the cost of living here is low, and these places usually take care of your housing and transportation costs, then it becomes much more reasonable. And for people who are younger yet, there are a lot of options here for coming to Japan on a student visa and finding work while you were a student. And there are numerous language schools and such which offer programs where you can study Japanese or other cultural things here, Japanese arts, music, things like that, and you can work while you're here, and you can enjoy a pretty good experience in Japan and fund it yourself without having to come here with a lot of money or even any money. And for those people who come on a student visa, if you can find more meaningful employment or a full-time job, you can get this job and change your visa status. It's not difficult. For retirees, the best way to come here is to get a business or investor visa. And as I said, Japan is a good place to retire to because it's a healthy environment. Air here is very clean, water is clean, the food is good, the cost of living is really low. The cost of housing outside the cities is almost free. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it's almost free. You can rent a home large enough for a family in many prefectures in Japan for $100 a month. Very reasonable. And of course, as I've mentioned, the healthcare system here is very good. But to get a business investor visa, you come to Japan with equivalent of 5 million yen, which you deposit in a bank account here, and submit a business plan and then incorporate, which is a simple process here in Japan. It costs about $1,500 for a law firm to do all the paperwork and make all the necessary filings and all of that. And you really only need to have the money on deposit when you apply, and you don't have to maintain that balance in the long run, which is really weird. For safety's sake, keep it. It's nice to have a 5 million yen. Just say 5 million yen, 5 million yen, about $35,000 right now. Not 50,000, I don't know what I was thinking, but 5 million yen. And if you have retirement savings in your home country, you simply transfer what you need each month, remembering that you'll have to pay tax on what you transfer. And this can be, through the business investor visa, be classified as income. And the system is very simple here. You don't need an account to do it. You'll get tax forms every year. You fill out with the money you bring into Japan, and then they'll send you a bill for the necessary taxes. You have to pay income tax and residency tax. And the tax varies depending on, of course, how much you make and where you live. Some places have higher rates of residency tax than other places. For myself, it's quite simple. I don't require a lot of documentation except for what I pay into the National Healthcare Plan and the National Pension Plan, because part of these expenses are deductible. They don't tax you up front in Japan and then make you fill out a tax return to get back anything that you were overcharged here. You give them your income and expenses, and they give you a bill for the amount of tax which you actually owe, which I think is a pretty good system. Now, for your first year in Japan that you're earning, you don't have to pay any tax during that year because your tax is based upon the previous year. So your first year in Japan is tax-free. But keep in mind, if you're in Japan with a visa, you have to pay your taxes. And you have to pay your bills. I mentioned before that Japan was a high trust society, and if you sign a contract with a Japanese contractor or business for a service or anything of the like, you'll find that the other party always keeps its end of the deal without coming back and trying to modify conditions later on or try to charge you more money after the fact. What you agree to pay or what they agree to pay will be paid or done. But keep in mind that goes both ways. If you are living here in Japan and you commit to doing something such as paying rent or a car payment or mortgage or whatever, you really have to stick to your side of the deal and pay on time. A friend of mine is responsible for bringing the Home Shopping Club to Japan. He'd seen this while living and working in America and thought that it might be a good business here in Japan. So he, at the time, he was one of the directors of the Mitsui group. And people in the Mitsui group were very skeptical. And one of the things they looked at was the amount of orders or pledges people made to buy stuff on television shopping, but who didn't pay. And in America, it's about more than a third of people who buy something from QVC or Home Shopping Club will actually pay for it and receive it, where it's not like that here. And here in Japan, when people shop on QVC or Home Shopping Club, more than 90% pay and receive their products. Traffic jam. Sumimasen. The guy on the left is a famous dog trainer, and he's out here in the woods in the back of the park training dogs. He's here all the time. A lot of dog owners live in this area because there are two big dog runs here where they can turn their dogs loose. And a lot of excuse me, a lot of pet and grooming stores. Big business around here, Yoyogi Park. And semi-sans, cicadas are waking up. It's about 8:30 in the morning right now. So, people in Japan keep their end of an agreement or bargain, come hell or high water. A good example of this was when my wife and I moved into our home in Roppongi. And before that, we were living in Shinkawa, which is in the middle of Tokyo next to Sumida River. And we used Sakai moving service, which is one of the big moving and trucking services here. And they sent a young guy who had recently graduated from college to give us an estimate on the move. And so he looked around our home and made a list of stuff. And then we went over to my office and he listed down the stuff that was there. And we set up the moving date. And the date came up and the movers arrived, and there were two movers with a rather small truck, and they walked into our place and started scratching their heads because our place wasn't that small. And so they got on the phone and they called in 2 more trucks and 4 more movers, and they got everything loaded up, and taken to our new home in Roppongi, and they didn't charge us a penny extra. So it was up to them to give us an accurate estimate, and they never said a word about wanting to charge us anymore, despite the fact they had to pay for 2 more trucks and 4 more movers, and likely lost a fair amount of money on our move. That's an interesting thing here. All right, getting around. Japan is well known for its amazing public transportation system, though for the most part it's actually a private transportation system. Japan Railways is privately owned. Many of the subways are privately owned. Many of the city buses are privately owned. And they're very competitive and run for profit. And Japanese people are very picky about cleanliness, quality of service, and value. And because they demand these kind of things, the cost of public transportation in Japan is quite reasonable, and the trains and stations and buses are kept very clean. No graffiti in Japanese trains, no trash, no dust, no dirt. And I went to New York City again recently, and it's just, the insides of the trains are cringy. It's like, I don't know if they hire anyone to actually clean the trains there. I'm sure they pay people to do it, because public transportation worker in New York earns 3 or 4 times as much as the same worker in Japan, but apparently the one in Japan does 10 times as much more work for the money. But yeah, it's disgusting. I mean, in Japan, you can let your kids walk barefoot in the trains and their feet won't get dirty. In Japan, or in New York, I'd worry about them catching some kind of disease. People here don't jump the turnstiles when you get on the train. I mentioned the severity of Japan's laws and criminal justice system. And on top of those consequences, if you're on your way to work or wherever and jump the turnstile or try to avoid paying, they'll let your boss know about it, because the first thing they always ask, the police always ask you if they stop you in Japan, is, where do you work? And if you have a full-time job in Japan, it's virtually impossible to get fired unless you commit a crime. And by holding the threat of contacting your workplace about you doing something illegal is a very serious threat, which Japanese people take seriously. And if you commit a crime here in Japan or are arrested for a crime, the police will always post your name, what you do for a living, and pictures if they can get them. So that's another reason why Japanese people are very law-abiding. They don't want to lose their job over doing something stupid, and they certainly don't want to be publicly embarrassed or have their parents or other family embarrassed by doing something crazy or stupid. That isn't to say that some people still don't do it, but they tend to be the exception instead of the rule. Hands are getting numb. It's only 16 kilometers. A few months ago, I could do 160 kilometers before my hands started to get numb. That's what happens when you don't stay on top of your fitness. But in another 6 weeks, I'll be fit as a fiddle again. Pensions. Speaking of pensions, Japan has a national pension plan, and if you work for a Japanese company, if you're here on a temporary visa, it's an optional program. You can pay into it And if you leave within 3 years, they'll refund you any money that you paid into the pension plan, or if you're from America or certain other countries, what you pay into the pension plan here in Japan will be counted as payment into Social Security or your own pension plan, and vice versa. If you're Japanese and are living and working in America and get a Social Security number and pay into Social Security, those payments will be transferred and count toward payment into the national pension plan when you return to Japan. The payment here is higher than in America. Full-time worker here will get pretty good payment from the national pension plan. Part-time workers will get a decent enough payment, and considering the cost of living in much of Japan, it's enough. Japan is one of the few places in the world where you can actually rent a place to live and support yourself if you're earning the minimum wage, even though the minimum wage here is roughly about $8 an hour right now. So, yeah, imagine being able to live independently on $8 an hour. Where else in the world can you do that if it's not in a developed country, especially a modern country like Japan? Another thing about Japan is there's so many things to do here. It's nice to be able to come to this park, and this is a beautifully well-maintained slice of nature right in the middle of some of the busiest districts in Japan, and indeed busiest districts in the world. It's nice and quiet here. People who've ridden around the cycling course in Central Park in New York, that's quite busy there most of the time. I've only seen 2 or 3 other cyclists here on the Yoyogi cycling course this morning, despite the fact that many more people ride bicycles in Japan than in New York or in other places. And besides Yoyogi Park here, we have other large parks in other parts of the city. And then when you leave the city, you kind of abruptly hit the countryside, which in Japan can be very spectacular. There are beautiful mountains here, beautiful beaches, beautiful valleys. The weather can vary from tropical in places like Ishigaki or Miyako Island way down in the south, and they have things like coconut crabs and other tropical animals and creatures down there. Or you go up to the far north in Hokkaido, where in the winter you may have to clear out 2 or 3 meters of snow to get out of your home. It's a very beautiful place, and if you were to travel to a different place every single day, it would take years to exhaust all the possibilities. And the transportation system here makes it very easy and convenient to visit most places. Now we have a lot of foreign tourists who are coming into Japan recently, and the tourist places are really overrun here, very crowded, long lines, trains and buses are quite busy. But there's so many other places in Japan which have almost no tourists, and which I think are far more beautiful than the places which tourists love to go when they come to Japan. My favorite place here on Honshu is Towada Lake in Aomori. Towada Lake is a big volcanic lake, quite large, kind of in the center of Aomori Prefecture. And from Tokyo Station you can get on the Shinkansen or bullet train, and it takes you to Hachinoe, or Hachinoue is how it should be pronounced, but anyway, you can go up there, and then it's a quiet station on the coast, and then usually rent a car at the Times Car Rental, which is right in front of the station, and drive to one of the old resorts near the lake. Enjoy a beautiful room with beautiful scenery and the sound of running water and amazing food. And then I usually rent a bicycle from the hotel and ride to the lake. And you know, with my daughter, it's about 12 kilometers, a pretty good ride from where we usually stay. And have lunch and ice cream by the lake, maybe take a boat tour around the lake, visit the old shrine on the peninsula. It's a great place. And there are many places like that around Japan which are unknown to foreign tourists, which I think give you a much better example, or I guess experience, than being crowded together with other foreigners at Shibuya Crossing or Takeshita Street or other places like that. Maybe I should make a video one day recommending the best places, best unknown places in Japan to visit. A huge number of resorts were built here back in the 1980s during Japan's golden age. And these were very spectacular places. Many of them are still in operation. Many of them are still quite beautiful, but still virtually unknown, except to older Japanese. I went with my wife and mother-in-law to a place in Kanazawa on the Noto Peninsula, a place which was hit hard on the New Year's Day earthquake a couple of years ago. And a beautiful place, beautiful hotels, wonderful food, spectacular scenery, and hot springs everywhere, even outdoor hot springs where you can just stop and put your feet in. You don't have to pay anything to use them. A great place, and to most non-Japanese, they don't even know it exists. And even to Japanese, the younger ones don't know about it. So a nice, quiet and beautiful place, inexpensive compared to the more popular places. There's so many places like that. But anyway, I think I'm getting a little tired of talking, and I have to concentrate on breathing. It's starting to get hot here. Tokyo is very hot and humid in the summer. Think of like the American South in August, and that's what it is like here. Very hot with thick air, and often wonderful thunderstorms in the afternoons or evenings. I'm going to stop in a few moments and get something cold to drink and catch my breath. And as I said, I'll be posting a camera review video this weekend. One of my better ones, or at least I hope so. If you want to see that, please come and check back. If you'd like to hear more about Japan, more videos like this, please let me know in the comments section. If there's anything specific about Japan and Tokyo you would like to hear about, let me know and I'll do my best to answer. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in again soon.